Okay, so imagine this. One of the greatest philosophical minds of the 20th century is on his deathbed, and he writes one last manuscript. But he's not just summing things up. No, he's putting his entire life's work on trial. And this text, which was just recently discovered, is a jaw-dropping takedown of the very ideas that made him a legend. And right out of the gate, he drops this absolute bombshell. A question that basically threatens to unravel everything he ever stood for. This one sentence. Wow. It just sets the stage for this incredible, unsettling journey he's about to take us on. So, to really get why this is such a huge deal, we've got to take a quick step back. We need to remember the ideas that made him so famous in the first place. This whole philosophy of radical freedom that, honestly, defined a generation. Okay, so his big idea, the one that put him on the map, was this thing called existence precedes essence. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Think about a paper knife. Someone designed it with a purpose, to cut paper. Its essence came before its existence. But for us, he said it's the other way round. We're just born. We exist first, like a blank slate. And it's up to us, through every single choice we make, to create our own meaning, our own purpose. But, and this is the crazy part, he never saw this as some happy-go-lucky gift. No way. He saw it as a terrifying burden. We are, in his most famous words, condemned to be free. We're forced to choose, and the weight of that responsibility for who we become is entirely 100% on us. All right, so let's jump forward a few decades. Picture this, a classic Parisian cafe. The philosopher is an old man now, and everything he thought he knew, all those certainties, are about to just crumble. And it all starts by watching someone order a coffee. He's watching this young man, who he decides to call Vincent, order a coffee. And Vincent, he's feeling pretty good about himself. He thinks choosing a café crème over a café noir is this little act that proves his freedom, that makes him him. But the old philosopher, he's looking at this and seeing something completely different, something kind of disturbing. He sees the very act of being aware of yourself making a choice as a kind of violence. It actually creates this gap, this separation between you and the thing you're actually doing. So let's break this down because it's super important. On one hand, you have the pure experience, just tasting the coffee, not thinking, just being in the moment. But the second that observation pops into your head, the thought, hey, I'm enjoying this coffee, you've just ripped yourself out of the experience. You've turned the moment into a thing you're looking at, and in doing that, you've killed it. And that leads him to this crushing conclusion. Our self-awareness, the very thing we think makes us human, is actually a relentless tragedy. It murders every single moment of our lives just by watching it happen. You can imagine, right? This one thought just blows up everything he's ever believed in. If being self-aware is a trap, then what on earth does that mean for his ideas about being authentic, about living in good faith? So he completely redefines bad faith. Before, bad faith was simple. It was pretending you weren't free, trying to escape your responsibility. But now he says the deeper bad faith is believing you could ever be perfectly authentic in the first place. It's the ultimate lie you tell yourself, that there's some true self that can stand back and watch your life unfold. So you're probably asking, why? Why is it impossible? Well, it's because our consciousness is basically set up like an observer. We are always, in a way, performing our lives for a tiny internal audience of one, ourselves. And that leaves us with a really tough question, doesn't it? If we can never be truly authentic, if we're always sort of play acting for ourselves, are we just stuck, hopelessly trapped inside our own heads? Okay, so it sounds pretty bleak, I know. But he doesn't just leave us there in despair. The manuscript points to these little glimmers of hope, these brief, beautiful moments of wholeness when we actually forget ourselves. He talks about these moments of, what we'd now call flow. You've seen it. A waiter moving through a crowded room with this perfect, unconscious grace. Or two people just lost in genuine, uncontrollable laughter. In those moments, that gap between the self and the action, it just vanishes. The person becomes the action. But of course, there's a catch. A huge one, actually. It's a paradox. You can't try to have these moments. You can't will them into existence. The very act of trying to be whole is what keeps you broken. Wholeness is a kind of grace that only shows up when you stop looking for it. So the end of the manuscript isn't some grand new answer that solves everything. It's something deeper.
It's a kind of brave, profound acceptance of our own limitations, of being incomplete.
And this is just incredible. In a show of just, wow, total intellectual honesty, he goes back to his most famous book, Nausea, and he basically says, I got it wrong. He says that he and his main character, Requentin, completely misunderstood the whole point of the book. He even comes up with a new name for the feeling, metaphysical envy. He realizes the nausea wasn't disgust because the world is meaningless. No, it was a dizzying jealousy of looking at something simple, like a chestnut tree's root, and seeing how it was just perfectly and completely itself. A kind of wholeness that our self-aware, divided minds can never, ever have. So where does that leave us? Well, he circles all the way back to the beginning. He starts his final conclusion by restating that iconic line, the foundation of his entire career. Yes, we are condemned to be free. But then he adds the new, humbling, hard-won truth from the end of his life. This freedom means we are also condemned to never be perfectly whole. We are fundamentally, beautifully incomplete. And here's the final beautiful twist. This gap, this fracture in our very being, it's not a mistake. It's not some flaw in the system that we need to fix. It is the very thing that makes us human. His last, breathtaking line suggests that our incompleteness isn't a curse, it's a magnificent opening. We are the wound through which the world wanders.